So as a card maker, I like to coordinate the decorations on all parts of my card. So I decorate the outside of the card, the inside of the card, and the envelope. And today we are going to focus on decorating the envelopes for our cards, and I have 5 different ways that you can do that. Hi, it's Lynn Dunn from Stamptastic Designs. Thanks so much for joining me today. In this episode of Stamptastic TV, I have 5 different ways that you can decorate the envelopes to coordinate with the cards that you are making. Now, the cards and envelopes in this video feature the Blossoms in Bloom stamp set from Stampin' Up! And a variety of other fun products from the 2020-2021 Stampin' Up! Annual Catalog. However, keep in mind that you can use any supplies that you have on hand to create these cards and to decorate your envelopes. Okay, so this first card I have to share with you is just a very basic and simple design. It just involves some stamping, that's it, and just a little bit of embellishing. So I coordinated the stamping on my envelope with the stamping on my card. And so you can stamp it up in the upper corner on the envelope, or you can stamp it in the lower corner. It just depends on what look you're going for. So let me show you how to make the card first. So you're going to start with a piece of white cardstock for the base of your card. And I'm just going to open up my card because it makes it a lot easier to do the stamping on. And I'm going to use the stamping mat to help me do the stamping for this design. Now, since I'm going to be overlaying this stamp, it's a pretty big stamp, I'm just going to be stamping off on the edge here. So I'm going to add just a little bit of scrap paper underneath here on my stamping pad, so that when I stamp that corner section, it'll just overlay onto that paper. So it's a pretty large stamp, so I like to turn my ink pad upside down and ink my large stamps this way. And then I'm just going to angle this and stamp it right on the corner. Okay, so I'll bring the card back so you can see what it looks like. Okay, now I'm just going to add a variety of different stamped images and add some color to what I've stamped here. So I'm starting out with Night of Navy, and I'm just using one of the little flower images that's in the set just to add some kind of bold color in here. Next, I'm going to take my Daffodil Delight and just add a center to the flowers. And then I'm using soft seafoam for the leaves. And then I'm going to go back to the Daffodil Delight and just add little flowers kind of throughout, just to add a little bit more color. And then for the finishing touch, we'll just add a little stamped sentiment. And then, of course, you can add some pearls just to kind of dress it up just a little bit. All right, so there's the basic design for the card. Now we need to create the envelope. So for the envelope, we're just going to use that same large stamped image. And I'm actually going to flip this upside down. So this is the top part of my envelope, and I want it up in this left-hand corner. But I'm going to flip my envelope upside down. It'll just make it easier to stamp. We'll add our paper back here. Okay, so I'm just going to use these 2 flowers to stamp kind of on the corner of my envelope. And then I'm going to decorate it in the same way in which I decorated the card. So I'm just going to add the dark blue flowers, and then my yellow, and then of course a couple leaves. Okay, you can see I've decorated one envelope with the stamped images in the upper corner and one with them in the lower corner, and both coordinate very nicely with our cards. So stamping is just a very simple way to decorate your envelope. Okay, the second way that you can decorate your envelope is simply to coordinate it with the pattern paper that you have on your card. So you can see I have a little bit of this designer paper on the bottom here, and then I added that designer paper to the flap of my envelope so that my card coordinates with my envelope. So let me show you how to create this card and this envelope. Okay, so we are again going to start with a piece of white cardstock for the base of our card. And I've already opened up the cardstock. I'm going to be stamping on this side. And the concept for this card is very similar to the one I just shared, except for that we are going to be stamping our image directly in the center of the card. And then we will go ahead and decorate it in the same way. Okay, once you have the images stamped, you can go ahead and cut a 1 by 4 1/4 inch piece of designer paper, and we're just going to adhere that directly to the bottom of the card. Then you can add a little sentiment. So this is just a 1/2 inch wide piece of white cardstock. So we'll add that, and I just popped it up with a couple dimensionals. And for the finishing touch, we're just going to go ahead and add some pearls to the card. Okay, so that's the basic design of the card. Now let's go ahead and decorate the envelope. Okay, so basically what you need is just a piece of designer paper that coordinates with your card. So I am using the Balmy Blue Designer Series paper, and this piece is 2.5 by 6 inches. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just open up my envelope because we just want to put it on the flap. So we'll lay that flat. So we're just going to add liquid glue all around our envelope there. And we'll just make sure to get it in the corners a little bit here. And then I'm just going to take my 2.5 by 6 inch piece of designer paper, and I'm just going to line it up with that edge, that top edge of the envelope here. So using liquid glue allows me to just kind of scoot it around a little bit. Okay, and then all you have to do is flip this over and simply cut this off. And the envelope gives you a nice little guide for cutting this off. So this is just a fun and simple way to just add a little bit of pizzazz to your envelopes and coordinate them with the cards that you have made. Okay, there you go, that's it. So now we can bring back our cards, and you can see that we have envelopes that coordinate with the cards that we've made. Okay, the third way that you can decorate your envelope is simply to decorate the back side of the envelope. So this is similar to the first card that I shared where I stamped the front of the envelope. This time I'm stamping on the back flap of the envelope. So let me show you how to do this. So first I'm going to talk a little bit about how to create the card. So I've already done the stamping because I've basically used the exact same design that I just shared with you in the last card idea, in card number 2. So I just stamped that large image across the front of this white piece of cardstock and then just decorated it with the different colors and the different images from the stamp set. So I'm not going to recreate the design for you because I already showed it to you, but I did decorate this one just a little bit differently. So I just created a little die cut piece, and then I stamped one of the images from this large image onto this lower part of the die cut piece and added my little sentiment. So that's just going to go right in the center of the card. And then of course I added some pearls to embellish the card. And now we will create the envelope that coordinates with this card. Okay, so this is what the envelope looks like. And again, I just stamped it on the flap of the envelope. So I've opened up my envelope here, and we're just going to stamp that large image right across the flap of the envelope. So the nice thing about this stamp is that we're going to use these 3 that go across here. I could have used the 2, but we're going to make this large, and we're going to use the 3 and just stamp it on the flap of the envelope. And then we're going to just decorate it in the same way that we decorated the card. So I'm just going to add my darker colors, and then I'm going to add my little yellow to make this pop. And then I'm just going to add a couple of leaves kind of tucked in and around the flowers. And that's it. It's just a quick and simple way to add just a little bit of pizzazz to your envelopes. And of course, they coordinate very nicely with the cards that we created. Okay, the fourth way that you can decorate your envelope is to use the designer paper that you used on your card. Use that on the front of your envelope instead of on the flap of your envelope. So let me show you how to decorate the envelope and create this particular card. Okay, so for this card, I am again using that same design that I used on the other cards. I just added my little greeting here on the bottom. And in this case, we are going to add a 1 by 5.5 inch piece of designer paper right down this side of the card. Then once I adhered that piece, I just wrapped a bit of white twine around and tied it into a little bow, and then embellished it with a few pearls. Okay, so now that we have created the card, let's go ahead and create the coordinating envelope. So the decorations on this envelope actually are on the left side, and then I added my little strip of designer series paper. So let me show you how to do this. We're going to stamp on this side of the envelope, and I'm going to use those 3 flowers again. So this is a photopolymer, so it makes it easy to line up. And once you have your main image stamped, then again we're going to go ahead and decorate it in the same way that we decorated our card. Okay, next you want to cut a piece of designer paper that matches the designer paper that you are using on your card. So in this case, this is just a 1/2 inch by 5 inch piece, and it's a little longer than the envelope, but that's okay. I'm just going to line it up on the edge, and we'll push that down, and then that way I can just trim off the excess with my scissors. All right, so there you go. Now you have an envelope that coordinates beautifully with the card. Okay, and the last envelope decorating idea that I have for you today features the use of an embossing folder. So much of what we've done today had to do with stamping and using designer paper or pattern paper, but this one involves embossing the envelope, the flap of the envelope, and you can do this with any embossing folder. And of course you can also see that I embossed this card. So let me show you how to create both of these. Okay, so again, I am using the same design I used on the majority of the cards I shared with you today. So all we're going to do now that I have everything stamped is we're going to emboss the front of this card. So I'm just going to take my stamped images and I'm going to slide them into the embossing folder so that the embossing folder, the edge of it, is flush with the fold in my card. Okay, and then we'll send that through. Now we're going to do the same thing, except for we're going to do that with our envelope. We're going to do that with the flap of the envelope. So I'm just going to take the flap of my envelope and slide it into the embossing folder. So I want the edge of the envelope flush with the edge of my embossing folder. And then we'll send that through. So it gives you a nice texture and just another fun way to decorate your envelope. Okay, so there you go. Now you have 5 simple ways that you can decorate your envelopes to coordinate with the cards that you are making. And if you enjoyed this video, feel free to download the printable tutorial. You can find the link in the description below this video. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know by liking it and sharing it with your friends. And leave me a comment below to let me know what you enjoyed most about the video and the project shared here today. Have a fun and creative day, my friends. Take care.